Hi, welcome back, my dear students. In this lecture here, I'm going to show you some very valuable information. It's about forms. The form element is super useful. We can use it to send emails. We can use it to receive data from customers in our e-commerce websites, like feedbacks or other information. So anyway, let's go ahead and explore that element. So let's open our code editor and let's go to the blank.html and let's do a save as here. And let's call this forms. I think it's appropriate. And then we are going to open this in the browser, of course. There we go. I'm going to close this out since I'm not going to need to go to that sidebar anymore. And let's type in, let's just make this a little bigger so you can see it. So the form element is just like any tag on HTML. We have an opening and a closing one. There we go. And then it's going to have some children inside. So we're going to have some elements that belong to the form element. The first one is input. All right. There we go. Now, if you see the input here, and let me just take this off for a minute and explain this. The input is just like those tags that do not have a closing tag like this. So we don't have a closing tag in the input tag right here in this input element. All right. So now the input does have a lot of attributes that we can place in there. So the first attribute is type, and you already saw it. I just took it off. I just wanted you to see that it does not have a closing tag. So we have an attribute called type, and this is just gonna let us know, or let right here, it's going to let the browser know what type of input this will be. And the default is text, and this is the one that we are typing in right here. And if you see, if we go to the browser, I can write stuff in here, right? And this is Google Chrome, by the way. So if I take this off here and I save it, come back here and refresh it, we still have that text. So that's the default type for that. All right. So I'm just gonna type in text because I just like, it's appropriate to do it, best practice. And then I'm going to make another input below. Now keep in mind that if you keep making inputs like this and you don't put no separation, no line break or anything, they're gonna keep going horizontally like this. All right, because this is an inline element that it's not a black label element. All right, so this one here, we can actually change the type on it. The type of this would be email. All right, that's just going to give us some validation there later on, and I'm going to show you once I put a submit button. All right, now let's make another input type something else. Let's make this one type password. I just want you to be familiar with these types here. Right here, if I type here, you see those dots there, and that's why we name it we name it password here, so that way we have this dots there. The user does not see the password. All right, now in the past, this is what we used to have. We used to have a text field in here, but now we're able to have an email field, so that way we have some security there. All right, so this is happening in the browser. Now there's another input type, and this one is called file. All right, and refresh. And this one is just going to allow us to download something from the computer. So if I click on it, it's going to prompt me to download something from here, to upload something there. So if I click here on this Lamborghini picture and click open, you can see that this gets saved right here in this file, in this input. You see the file name right here. Well, let's do it again. And I'm just going to type this image here. All right, as you can see right here. All right, now I will explain that later on how that works, but just know that that's not going to be processed by HTML. It's going to be processed by language probably like PHP or something like that, right? But don't worry about that. We'll explain later on. Now let's make another input here called submit, and this is what makes everything happen on this form. Refresh, and if I click submit, nothing happens. All right, and I'll show you why that is happening right now. All right, so first let's go ahead and kind of fix this a little bit. Right, we don't have This all looks really bad. It's all inline and it looks really bad. It doesn't even look like a form. Let's go ahead and start formatting this a little bit. So I'm just gonna separate these inputs right here, like this. All right, and let's wrap this in p tags. All right, each of them. So I want you to go ahead and do that right now. All right, if you're not practicing, you should be practicing. All right, you should be doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm just gonna organize a little bit nice there. All right, and I'm just gonna wrap all of them in p tags. I'm gonna put a space there. You can see here on the left side that everything is changing really nice. Take your time with it, you know. This is just like art. All right, let's just put another p tag right here. There we go, almost there. There we go, that looks a lot better. P tag here. All right, I'm doing it slowly so that way you can do it. There's another way of me actually doing this a lot faster, but I want you to keep up with what I'm doing. Let's just put this a little bit here, actually, like this. All right, and let's do the last one right here. I'm just gonna put this one there. There we go. I think that's okay. That's just gonna leave it like that. All right, so that looks a lot better now, right? Now we're missing something here, right? So how are we gonna let the user know what they need to type in these boxes, right? So we need some type of um, name here. So this one, just gonna, I want the user to type name in there. This one, I want the user to type the email. This one, the password. That would be nice if I spell this correctly, right? Again, password. Here we go. The file is pretty explanatory. It's actually self-explanatory. That's what I try to say there. And the submit also says what it needs to submit. All right. So I think that looks a lot better. Now we can actually make this a lot better later on with CSS, but just to give you an idea. Now there is a lot of another attribute that we can put in here. Like for example, here we can put placeholder. All right. This is an attribute with a value of maybe enter name. All right, and you can do this for all of them. I'm just gonna do it for this one here so you can have an idea. You see this now? Now we don't even need this attribute right here. All right, and they can just put their name there. Now there is another way of actually doing this p tags that I just showed you how to do here. Instead of doing p tags, we can actually do something called label right here like that. And we're gonna say label for what? Name. All right, and let's just write name here. All right, that's one way of doing that. Refresh, and you can see it's almost the same thing, right? And we can wrap it around there if we wanted to wrap the whole input. Refresh, same thing. All right, so just know that you're gonna see a lot of forms with this label there. Perfect. All right, so I just wanted to do it differently there so that way you can see how it's done. All right, different ways that you can do it. We can also put BR tags in here and bring down the rest of this. If we didn't have this p tag here, we can put a BR, right? But I think with a label element, which is a new way of doing it, is actually nice right here. All right, very useful. All right, so now what I wanted to explain to you about the form, all right, is that we have an attribute called action here, and this attribute has a value of where we want to send the data of this form. Because I don't know if you know anything about PHP, and you shouldn't, because you're really looking at HTML, and that should be the first thing that you look at, right? So you're really learning HTML, the basics. So what this action attribute will do is send all the data. So when the user comes in here and types in some type of data, and they click and they put a file in here and they click submit, that's going somewhere else. You see now that we type in this, we put the action in there and submit. When we click it, we get that @ symbol there, validation. This is the browser telling us, listen, you need to include that. And that's what this email type here does. Because we can put a text typing here and they can put an email, fine. But if we put that email typing here, that is going to give us some validation there. It would not submit the data unless they put that at symbol there. So that's an extra validation there. There's other ways of doing it with JavaScript and even PHP when they send the information over. So this form usually is going to be sent to another file, and for example, it's going to be sent to a process.php. So it's going to go to this page that is executed by PHP. So this whole form, all this data is going to be sent to a page called process.php, and then PHP is going to process it. You see, HTML cannot process this information. It cannot do that. All right, we can process some of we can do some validation using JavaScript before we send it to the server, but it needs to be processed by a server. In this case, going to be PHP, right? So that's what that action will do, and this is how you send information. Now the other attribute that it needs is that attribute called method, because we need to let it know that we need to the type of data that is going to be sent, and it's going to be post most of the time, right? So this post data there. Now in the way that this works is, now if we submit this form the way it is right now, and even if we put this at symbol there and we submit it, it says cannot post process.php because we don't have a server here, right? There's no server working. Usually what we do in development is that we install a server installation, which in my other course I explain how to do it. But you install a server, a local server in your computer that acts like a real server, and then we can use this functionalities here with PHP. Now, in order for us to send this data, we need to actually catch it somewhere else. And the way we catch it is, and the way we send it, first of all, is by using this name attribute here in these input fields. And here we just name it email, right? For example. Now, when this data gets sent to this process.php, this input right here, and this is the only one we put this name attribute and the value email, right? This input will be sent with that text that goes inside this email input. So in this case, if I put hello Gmail, this data gets sent to that process.php, and it's going to receive it as an array. An array is just a container with some information inside. So it's going to receive this data in that process.php. It's going to say, oh wow, look at that array with a value of email, with a key of email. I'm going to do something with it, and then we start doing other processing over there with it in that server. All right, but know that that's PHP. All right, you would not use this in HTML. I just wanted you to have a basic introduction on what the form actually does. All right, so all these fields, in order for this data to be sent, have to have a name attribute with a value. This one has to have a password. All right, this one has to have some type of name here. Okay, whatever you're sending. If you're sending an image, you put an image here. All right, and here the submit has to have a submit or any type of name, and this doesn't have to be password. You can name it whatever you want. You can actually just name it pass if you want. It really doesn't have to be anything that I'm telling you to do. It's just I'm naming an email because it's an email information input, right? And this is a password, so that's why I'm using that. And it doesn't matter if you use the same. All right, so just know that this is how it works. If you didn't understand this, don't worry about it. What you got to take out of this lecture here is know that this is a form element, this is a markup, this is how you do it, and know that we process that information using PHP in another page. All right, so anyway, thank you so much for watching this lecture. Hopefully you got some valuable information, and I'll see you in the next lecture. It was a pleasure like always. Take care, and great job if you follow me all the way through.